All right, everybody. Welcome to the interview with Mark from Max Mobility. We're really excited to talk today with him about the SmartDrive and see what's going to happen in the future. How's it going, Mark?
Great. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. It's great, great to be here.
Absolutely. And as usual, we have Andrew Hippert with us from Living Spinal. How are you doing, Andrew?
Very good. How's everybody doing today?
First off, Mark, where are you located?
So we're in Nashville, Tennessee, the heart of country music.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm a fan, but it means we're in the heart of country music here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Nice.
My wife actually was just in Nashville for a ladies' weekend, and she said that it is a crazy town. She said literally, besides New York City, she hasn't really been to many cities that are as hustling and bustling as downtown Nashville.
Yeah, so I think we're number 2 for like bridal and bridal parties. Coming in for bachelor parties.
Bachelorette parties.
Yeah, we're second to Vegas.
For a single guy, that's not a bad problem.
Right? Loving life.
And then, Andrew, you are in Florida. I know that much. And I am in sunny San Diego right now. So the first question that we've been asking people outside of who they are is, what was the last TV show that you watched? And I'll start first so that you can think about it. The last one that I watched was the Tim Ferriss Experiment. Have you guys ever seen that? Or do you know?
No, I don't even know what that is.
So it's this dude who wrote a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, total cheeseball title, but really good content. Then he wrote another one called The 4-Hour Body, which got way more press, and then The 4-Hour Chef. So his whole idea is that he's this human guinea pig for whatever happens. Like how do you bulk up really quick? How do you cook great food? How do you build a business? And so he did this, it's like 18 episodes or something, where he tries to learn parkour in 3 days. He tries to learn Brazilian jiu-jitsu grappling moves in 2 days, and tries to learn the Filipino language, I forget the name of it, in 2.5 days. And then he tries to prove that he knows what he just learned, like a quick way to like hack learning, essentially. So it
sounds like the Matrix when they like download in your head.
Yeah, totally.
I'm currently living the Matrix, by the way. I don't know if you know that. So you guys are in it. I'm out. Yeah, I can do all that shit.
Uh-huh.
That's
you
awesome.
just gotta fall in and just poof, you're there.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna show up next to you in a minute.
Could you give me a doctorate real quick? That would be great.
That's awesome. You're in. It's funny. So I guess, I don't know, we're going around the first
go for it, Mark.
I'm a Netflix guy, so I don't really watch cable, so I don't know crap about what's on cable right now. But for me, I've been watching something called Person of Interest.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of cool. I didn't think I was really gonna like it, but I'm kind of digging it. So it's like basically some billionaire guy who was a code guy, a computer code guy.
Yeah.
He got tasked to try to filter out all of the surveillance camera and chatter and figure out if there's a terrorist threat or not. Right. So some massive kind of AI, big data machine. And when he sort of sold that or did it as a contract to the government, but they didn't care about, so the chatter also revealed when somebody else was going to be in danger, like an individual, like just a regular Joe, like me and you were about to get killed and we didn't know it, right? So I don't know, we pissed somebody off and they're all talking about the scheme on, we're going to hit them from behind with a sledgehammer and this is the plan, right?
Uh-huh.
And so basically he has the machine spit out serial numbers, or sorry, not serial numbers, but social security numbers of individuals of interest, whether they're the killer or the killee, we don't know. So they go in and just try to figure out, because he did it kind of covertly, so he doesn't have any data other than just who it is. It's kind of fun because there's action scenes where the guy's like a super commando, killing, taking people out in groups.
Yeah.
And then there's just like some kind of cool coverty stuff that happens too, kind of spy-like.
Is it like a Netflix original? Is it brand new?
You know what? I think it is. I think it's a Netflix show. Yeah, I have
It
to look
is,
it up.
it's been around for a little bit. I got very addicted to that show as well. So I've watched every single one and kind of crushed through it. It's a fun show for sure.
I got to check it out.
Yeah, the guy that he's got hunting these people down for him is a pretty badass. So
he's like Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes. Yeah. Only like superstar version. Like he's like, covert. He's got spy background. He's a military trained dude.
Uh-huh.
He's got kind of a rough persona to that sometimes can kind of I think it gets old. Is that why you stopped watching it maybe? Like eventually you're just like, I can't handle that guy anymore.
No, I watched all of them.
Oh, okay, good. Because I didn't know what's going to happen. I'm watching them all serially right now. So I guess I'm going to
won't
finish.
say anything.
All right, there you go. Thank you.
So what about you, Andrew? What are you watching?
So I'm going to go actually with a movie that I watched because last night I watched Tarzan, and it was pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie.
Nice.
It's like a real version of Tarzan where he is raised by these gorillas and he is super hardcore, can just cruise through the jungle, and he has to save everybody and save the Congo, and it's definitely worth a watch. It's pretty good.
So
I've watched the equivalents of that kind of stuff, but I never really. I think that's real film, right? Not animation. Is that
right? It's a real film.
Yeah, I got to see that. Okay, that sounds cool.
There's a little bit of animation. There's certain moments, and you can tell. Obviously, these gorillas are but it's pretty clean that you don't even really know, because he does have to fight his brother gorilla at one point, and don't
give it away.
He wasn't actually able to fight his brother gorilla, but you know.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, good to know. So, well, the thing is, Mark, we find ourselves talking about the SmartDrive MX2 almost every day, honestly. It's one of those products that I think really excites a lot of people. And we've received just dozens and dozens of comments on Facebook every time that we post about the SmartDrive. We have, I think, over 22,000 views on our SmartDrive MX2 video on YouTube. So you've really hit a home run with this product. And I was wondering if you could just explain to everybody what the SmartDrive MX2 is for somebody who's never seen it.
Okay. Yep. So maybe I'll give you a little bit of background first, kind of on what I've done and
Sure.
why I did that, because I think it's going to set the stage for maybe why people should like it.
Right.
Because sometimes I think there's this weird thing in your head that it's ingrained from physical therapy. So in physical therapy, they say, use it or lose it. Right. And that's totally legit. Nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's true, right? It's like if you look back at the Vietnam War era, when you had a lot of vets coming back and they were in chairs, and like for the first time they were trying to integrate in with everyone else, able-bodied, right? And they were using the crap out of their arms, right? They were playing basketball in hospital chairs, right? Like unprecedented shoulder usage, right? And those guys are suffering today because they were pushing some really unergonomic stuff. So use it or lose it is definitely true, because they got us to where we are today with basketball, wheelchair basketball, wheelchair tennis, everything, that all got invented from this. But what's kind of amazing is what we didn't know at the time back then, because they were just trying it to see if it would work, is use it or lose it ends up leading to degenerative chronic pain problems, right? You end up wearing down those shoulders, and you end up not being as happy pushing around because you got pain in your shoulders. It's kind of just that simple. So the new motto that I preach when I'm talking to therapists, clinicians, is use it, but don't abuse it. Mm-hmm. Everything in moderation. And it makes sense when you think about it this way. It's like, all right, this makes sense. So in the past, the motor was kind of like the devil, right? You don't want to go to a motor. You don't want to go to a full power chair. So how do you figure out something where you can still access a motor and make your life just easy enough that you don't have, so that pushing isn't a pain, right? There's that fine line, and for every person, it's different. But for the most part, I would say almost everyone has a period of time, even if it's just once at Disney World, where they wish that they weren't pushing that chair, but they were still moving with everyone else.
That'd be every single day.
Yes, and that's the SmartDrive. So it depends on who you are. You could have a guy that just uses it all day, 24/7 or whatever, and then you got the guy that uses it once a year at Disney World. But I would say on average, it's probably, and you know better than me, but maybe, I don't know, a third of the time, maybe you're pushing your chair, you got it, ballpark. I don't know for sure. Maybe it's more, maybe it's half, but that's the beauty of the SmartDrive. So the SmartDrive, in essence, is a small, lightweight motor that easily connects to your chair with minimal changes to your chair. It doesn't change tippiness. It doesn't really even change the weight of your chair, only because the weight's on the ground. So it's like a little mini trailer that's following behind you. The worst thing that happens is there's a little bumpiness because it has a special wheel called an omni wheel, and it stands for omnidirectional wheel. It's straight out of robotics. Like a bomb diffusing robot has these things where it goes in like a little RC car and it, diffuses a bomb. Those wheels allow for multi-direction of movement. So that one wheel, that one little motor on the back can be used freely for turning and pushing, right? Now, we don't power you into turns. We allow you to naturally glide with your two hands when you turn. So that's the basis of where the SmartDrive came from. It was a rethink of how people did power assist in the past. I'm going to adjust my mic so I got a little more hand space here.
Yeah.
my camera, because I'm using my hands and you can't see them. But so the idea is I wanted you to be able to still use your chair exactly like you normally do. So it feels very freeing, very natural, but you've got a motor pushing you ahead. And that's what the SmartDrive does. So it's a motor, but it has a freewheel built in it, kind of like a bike. So technically the bike can go faster than the pedals. So you can push the chair and the motor can then catch up. So we use that to our advantage. And basically what happens now is you give it a push, you give your chair a push, and it sets the speed of the motor at the speed of your push, and it catches up behind you and just starts cruising you at the speed of your push. It can go super slow, it can go fast, you can start slow and build up faster. It's super awesome and easy. I don't know like how else to explain it, but when you see someone use it for the first time, there's this huge smile on their face. And all I can say is that it's like a new experience, right? I've noticed that like a lot of especially the really cute girls, girls in general, go gaga over it because I feel like it makes them feel like a runway model. Like they can cruise with their head up and the wind in their hair. And like, they're just like, I'm hot, right? That's what they can do. Whereas if you're pushing, it's like you're kind of like focused on the pushing and you don't feel as sexy, right? Well, same thing goes for a guy because you can look cool, right? You can be cruising outside and be like, what's up? Yeah, I'm in a chair, but I'm doing nothing here. I'm cruising, right? I own this sucker. That's the feeling. That's what I see when I see people use it.
When I'm pushing, there is sometimes, especially if you're on a little bit of an incline or whatever, that you're like, hey, I don't want other people to feel like I'm struggling right now. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that relief of the feeling of other people perceiving you as struggling is something that is a big part of it.
I never heard that insight before. That's dead on. I can see why that would be, because you yourself could just hunker down and get through the hill or whatever.
Yeah, it's no big deal to around. Right.
Yeah, especially if you're dressed up, you're going to dinner or something. You don't even want to look like you're struggling, much less actually struggle and break a sweat, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like if I'm getting towards a door, people always want to run to it to open it for me. And it's like, look at the guns on this guy. I don't need you to open the door. What do you
Exactly.
So same thing with like, you don't want grandma to come over and push you. You're like, come on, grandma. I can get up this hill. I got SmartDrive on me.
Nice.
And I think what plays into it too is that, like how you said, it's really intuitive. It's somebody's chair that they already spend 24/7 in. And by just attaching that thing, it's boom, you have a power assist, and you're already, everything is perfect for your body. You already paid thousands of dollars to have a custom wheelchair. Why pay, twice that amount to get a power chair? That's big and bulky, heavy to load up. It's not transportable as easily, but
yeah, it's the most transportable way you could ever get power. I mean, it's literally, it's only 12 pounds, this motor, which doesn't seem like a lot. That's more than a jug of milk. It looks like a jug of milk when you look at the picture. I mean, 12 pounds is 12 pounds, but it's still not a typical power assist is 2 times 25. It's 50 pounds.
Yeah.
50 pounds is astronomical compared to 12 pounds. So we took all of the most cutting edge technologies that we could and brought them to bear on the SmartDrive. So it is, next generation lithium ion battery, not like the scary kind from hoverboards that are going to, burn your house down, or Samsung battery. None of that. Super stable battery technology. It's lithium iron phosphate. We've got great motor control, really smart. It's a smart system, right? So it's something you don't often see in every product, but some products like iPhones and things like that, if it's smart and it's really like, it's able to try to predict what you want to do and make your life easier, that's what it's trying to do. And we've been continually evolving the SmartDrive from the beginning to get smarter and smarter and smarter. And like, we're working on the next generation, and I mean, stay tuned. It's not that far off.
Wow.
And it's even better. I mean, I'm just perplexed as to how this is getting better again. But
right.
better again.
Well, can you explain the original prototyping process that you went through, the whole brainstorming side of it, the aha moment, and then, going down the route to make the first one?
Yeah, well, and so this kind of goes back to, I started doing R&D in this field way back before there were ergonomic push rims. So like I did, you guys may or may not know the Spinergy Flex rim. So it's one of the ergonomic rims that you don't hear much about, but it's a high-end, low-impact push rims. I was the inventor of that. Mm-hmm. So I've been trying to solve the overuse and the taxing problem other ways other than a motor for a long time. So what I knew was it's got to be minimal, it's got to be low weight, it's got to be almost no impact on, like you can't change your life for it. It needs to change, it needs to fit your life. Right? And that was the goal. So when I looked at Power Assist, I exhausted everything except for a motor before I got to the motor. I did ergonomic push rims. I did ergonomic setup of your chair, like how well your chair fits your body. I did a whole set of clinical fitting tools to make sure therapists didn't screw up, didn't botch your chair, right? I did studies on how you push the chair. So like your push technique itself could be improved. You could squeeze 5 to 10% efficiency more if you like do a really long smooth stroke and you think about it. And it really only works on like level surfaces. Like once it starts breaking down when you go up steep hills or on carpet where there's no roll, Mm-hmm. But there's things you can kind of do, but they're all really, really tiny. So I tried to do a minimal, basically I figured that you would be less accepting of a big change than a small change, right? But if I could create a bunch of small changes together, well, it turns out that didn't work. Ergonomic push rim, wheelchair setup, push technique are all important, but they're like, if you combine those three together and you put it on the table and said, all right, this chip's going to save your shoulders, for long term till you're 80, you'd find that it basically gave you about a year of pain-free shoulder extra. Like instead of 10 years, it's 11. Like it's not enough. So I knew I needed a motor. And push Power Assist had been around for a decade before that. These, the e-motion type two motor systems. Yeah. And the billing code existed. You could get them if your shoulders hurt, but nobody wanted it. So I knew something's not right. It's too big, too bulky, too medical looking, too permanent. Like you're not going to carry a spare pair of wheels around, so you're not going to like swap between them very often. They're hard to put on the chair, so you're probably never going to take them off the chair. Like there's so many things that were negatives. So I thought, okay, how do you make a motor that's like less than 10 pounds, that's almost indiscreet, like you can't even see it on the chair? And that was the goal. And you don't have a throttle button. Like somehow it magically works. Yeah. And we came up with the idea that we could sense about the time that Fitbit first came around. You guys probably don't remember this, but before Fitbit was on the wrist, it was actually a pedometer that you wore on like a belt loop. Sure. You clipped it to your belt, and it was just like a pedometer, and it measured like your oscillation of your body when you walk. So we decided to try to see if we could measure that for pushing, because that's a lateral acceleration. And when we realized there was notable accelerations that were easily counted, you can count your pushes by just counting those accelerations. I realized I could actuate a motor. I could turn on a motor based on you pushing, right? Mm-hmm. And there's very few times that your chair accelerates that it's not you. There's a couple though, by the way. One of them is a curb cut. You go down a curb cut, even if you don't push and you roll down it, it looks like a push to me. So there's things we had to weed out, but there wasn't a lot. So it was kind of amazing. We were able to create a user interface out of what you naturally do in your chair, which was kind of amazing. And so that's what sparked the interest. It was like cool, crazy, robotic looking thing coupled with a really amazing interface. And so that first prototype, while it was pretty cool, I mean, it was very cutting edge, had a lot of limitations. And so every year we've evolved it, or every year and a half. And it's been mostly the user interface. How can you access the motor better, right? I don't want to get in the way, but at the same time, I've had to do what I've had to do to, because your hands are tied to the rims. So you can't just, grab a steering wheel and a gear shift knob. Like your hands are busy. So this has to happen with hands-free. Like it's almost like brainwave. If I could tap into your brain, you'd be like, go motor at 3 miles an hour. That's
coming next, Mark.
Yeah. Next month.
2 more years. You got that. I got this.
I was actually up at the robotics lab in UC Irvine, and they have a helmet you can put on, and that helmet actually is detecting stuff. So they've got a computer interface where they have a gentleman who's walking, and you just think about getting him to walk, and he starts walking, and then you think about stopping, and you can stop him at these stoplights. So, certainly there's people researching what you're talking about, but we'd have to wear a SmartDrive hat.
So while it's technically possible, imagine if I sold you a product with a hat with a bunch of sensors on it, and it had like, I don't know, even if it had a battery and stuff, like you'd be like, I don't know, I'm not a hat guy, right? I'm not and then usually they take the hair down, and you have to have contact with the scalp, like to get real electrical connection. So yes, in the future, somebody's going to really amp the sensitivity of those sensors, and they're going to put in a ball cap. It's going to be cool. But until that day, you use something else. And for us,
absolutely, I'm joking.
Control is kind of simple for us because it's pretty much just set the speed at a speed. Like it's like a throttle on a go-kart, right? Or something like that. It's all we're doing. It's just speed control. It's just one button. We don't have brakes. As a SmartDrive, we don't even have brakes. So it's just basically on and how fast, and then stop.
Yeah.
So for us, we decided to put a little accelerometer on the wrist, and that's the fundamental. That's where the breakthrough really happened. Was I can tap my hand and tell the motor what to do with a tap, essentially. So we use that to turn the motor off. But in the future, as a spoiler alert, you're going to use your hand to tell it to go. We're just, it's just next level. So if you love the SmartDrive now, and it's freaking awesome now, it just gets better and better. And these are software upgrade type stuff. So it's not like you're wasting your time. If you want one and then you want to upgrade or don't want to upgrade, it's a firmware update. It's simple. It's ridiculous.
Oh, that's huge.
Simple. Yeah. So we're getting smarter, and that next generation is going to have an app, and you're going to be able to just stream down firmware. So things are going to get just better and better and better. SmartDrive is on a technical, from electronics perspective, a very fast acceleration in terms of smarts.
So backing it all up, how did you get into the wheelchair industry?
So it was kind of it just happened. So when I was an undergrad engineering student, I took an internship with a small company, and the guy who owned the company was in a wheelchair. And it turns out he was like a brilliant dude. Like he is the grandfather, if you will, of wheelchair standards. So in other words, back in the day, a wheelchair could be made really crappy. And even though it's a medical device, like if it fell apart, it's like, okay, whatever, it's just a wheelchair. Well, he basically said wheelchairs should be durable and they should be effective. And he created test methods like bang up the chair, and it has to survive at least this many bangs to be a medical device, right?
Nice.
Yeah, he's the founder of all that. He's a really cool guy. He ended up creating all kinds of other standards for accessibility. So he's a Paralympic, from back in the day, Paralympic gold medalist for downhill skiing. So he did the first shock-absorbing downhill monoski.
Wow.
So yeah, and he basically did it by innovating. So there weren't any shock-absorbing monoskis. There was the closest they had was a leaf spring version, where the guy bounced violently all the way down the hill. He put a Fox monoshock on that thing and just killed everyone. He's just like boom, boom. He was just killing it.
Yeah.
So he had a good little reign before everybody got the same technology. Now everything is made that way, right?
He's an athlete and an incredible advocate for the community. That's really cool. The
guy was pretty amazing. He's still alive. His name's Peter Axleson. You can look him up. He's a really sweet dude. He's done everything from like dancing, like adaptive dances, to he flies a Cessna. Like
nice.
Adaptive seating for canoes, you name it. The guy was everywhere. He developed trail mapping systems for like Yosemite and Yellowstone, where they just map the trail for accessibility. They just tell you like the trail gets narrow. It doesn't make the trail accessible. He gives you this information almost like this is a double diamond. You want to go down this trail, it's a double diamond. You better be ready. Versus this is a green circle. That's what he did for trails. It's kind of amazing. He's done so many cool things, and it was all federally funded. So he would get grants, get the money, do the work, and release it into the wild. And so I learned that model. So as a grad student, I was lucky enough to get to go to Stanford for a Ph.D. And there's a lot of really smart people there. I didn't think I was one of them, to be honest with you. Compared to those guys, the smartest people from around the world, right? I'm from a small town in California. So I'm like a rural guy. I'm like a country guy. But around those people, it upped my game. And I was able to tap into the federal funding stuff that he did, and I was able to tap into the technology that I saw all around me at Stanford, and put those two together. And with financial resources and scientific know-how, you can do stuff. And once you get a team, I got a really great team, engineers. Before you know, we're just churning stuff out. Just, got a good idea. Let's solve it. Let's try it. Let's do this. It was a fun, we always said, like summer camp for kids, like geek kids, like, oh man, let's do something cool today. And that's what it was. And it was trial and error. I mean, some of the first SmartDrives were downright dangerous, quite frankly. Couldn't stop them to save your life. I actually tacoed a Q7 frame. Shouldn't say that model, but because I ground it, kind of like you're grinding on a skateboard. I hit a sidewalk corner. One caster went off, and the motor was set so hot that it just took the frame out. Because I couldn't stop the motor. It was, figuring out how to start and stop a motor, unless because 2020 hindsight, based on how the SmartDrive works now, how to make it work. But if you never did it before, like the first time, it wasn't exactly funny. And there was a time when I almost gave up, actually. I was going to repurpose the SmartDrive as an aging population chair with a gas pedal on the footrest. I couldn't do it. Couldn't figure it out. And then somehow something clicked, and then all of a sudden we were running, and it was like, wow, it was a miracle. How'd that happen? Some setting, some threshold, it's crazy. It's just like one little number makes all the difference.
Yeah,
absolutely. One of the things that I think is really, as a wheelchair user myself, and what I love about you, Mark, is that you've come from a background of wanting to help people. You come from a background of wanting to keep people healthy and safe, and save their shoulders. And you started in an industry that is an uphill battle right away, right? Where everybody, all of your paraplegics and some of the quadriplegics too, are a mindset of, no, I don't need help. I'll push myself, no thanks. And you saw that they weren't using these power assists that are out there, and why. And you've jumped some barriers that are huge in this industry. One being that this is the only power assist that you can take with you into a two-seater car, that you can transfer, break down your chair, and bring the power assist with you. If someone were to try any of the other industry standard power assist units out there and try to actually drive their own car and break down their chair, they'd be dead in a week. And so it's huge, and it honestly is touches my heart, and I think it's awesome to have you in this industry, and for people to be able to do and see an interview like this with you, because you're a smart guy, you care about the industry, and you're excitable for making it better and better for the future. So I want to thank you, right off the bat for that.
Yeah.
Oh man, thank you. I'm gonna get a Kleenex and do the tear wiping thing real quick.
Well, kind of along the.
It's true though.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no! It feels really good. I mean, I'm just trying to do a good job. I think it's my German nature. It's just solve the problem at all costs. And the problem turns out it was really important. And I mean, I knew it was important, but once I saw the effect, once I saw the smiles, and the gratitude, and people tell me, you changed this industry. This industry doesn't change ever. You're one of a kind. I'm like, wow, I'm like Steve Jobs, I'm important. And the ego kicked in. So you got to watch it on me. Don't give me too much ego.
So
no worries.
How would you distill your goals or your mission for Max Mobility?
I mean, it's always been to maximize the mobility and independence of people with disabilities, physical disabilities. I'd say that I've kind of graduated a little bit into the power side, so I kind of feel like I'm gaining a lot of knowledge in the consumer electronics and new cutting edge technology, like different kinds of motors, different types of microprocessors and sleep modes, and I'm getting exposed to Bluetooth and all these things that are typical of Bluetooth speakers and things that you buy at Best Buy, right? The more I can apply those to powered mobility, the cooler it is. So the equivalent of traction control in a sports car or a sedan, right? All these kind of things can get put in a power chair. So to me, my brain's spinning with we could do some badass power chairs here. Like with the tools at my disposal, and I've got revenue now, I can play.
Yeah.
Like I can play at an unprecedented level. Like I can play with the big boys if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's kind of, I think, really exciting for me is like what we're doing now. Like we'll continue. SmartDrive was going to march forward in some amazing ways. I can tell you that. But I think that we're going to probably start helping the other side of the fence, that power chair side. I think we're going to start kicking that some serious butt there as well. Like just eye-opening, cool technologies, basically.
Wow.
Changing the industry for the better. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, just case in point, most 98% of power chairs out there all still use lead acid or steel batteries, right? Like they don't even use lithium ion because the industry is ingrained in a certain direction. There's a reimbursement code for these batteries. But meanwhile, people, like literally an end user has to go get their batteries replaced more than once a year. And during that process, the performance of the battery degrades to where they don't even have a full day's charge before that happens. It's like insanity that this has ever had, that this taken this long to get an infusion of technology into an area, right? So to me, I feel like, okay, if I have a mission in life, it's to use my position with exposure to cool ass technology and a sensitive side to a population that can't maybe do it themselves as easily, right? Because somehow I've learned how to do this, and I can understand the challenges. I don't even know how this is. It's just somehow in who I am. I'm a nice guy. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's working. So just keep doing what I'm doing and do it to an even bigger level. Because I never got into this for the money. That's what's crazy. I was like a starving artist, if you will. I was an introverted scientist who happened to hit a product, and then suddenly we had revenue. And when we had revenue, oh man, heaven help us, we could do anything.
Yeah. Well, that's one question that we consistently get. And I think it's a valid question for some people, but I'd really like for you to explain your side of it. As people say, this is so expensive for me, I can't afford this. And the way that I come from that, like, R&D, prototyping, all of this stuff costs so much more money than what the average person understands. Can you touch on that for a little bit to help those people understand? Because, it's a barrier to entry for some.
Well, and there's different models of how people get these, but there is people pay cash for these, right? They get them on Living Spinal. They also go to the clinic and get it reimbursed by their insurance, and there's a whole hybrid of things. But because insurance reimbursement is part of that market, we price things such that they fit into a product billing code, right? So in the grand scheme of how this works, and this is all medical products. If you look at any medical product, you're always going to think that is way overpriced, right? What is it, $1,000 for a titanium knee or something, right? But then you think about it. Shit, if I was going to make a titanium knee, polished perfectly, all these crazy complex curves, not really that easy. It's not like the shell of a laptop or something that's just injected, molded out of plastic and churned out, one every 2 seconds. This is something that it's kind of a craft to really do that. And our industry it's called complex rehab. And in complex rehab, every product is actually made for an individual. So like your manual chair, right? Custom built specifically for one guy, right? Or one girl, one size person. And because of that, the prices are inflated because it's like a craftsman level that goes into making these things. So it's true that when you look at a SmartDrive, you think, oh, it's a motor and a plastic shell and a little wrist strap. If I bought it at Best Buy, it should be like $9.95, right? And I don't disagree, but what happens is the big difference between these markets, if you're in the Best Buy market versus our complex rehab market, Best Buy can not Best Buy, let's say Fitbit, right? Fitbit can churn out 1 million of these exact same things and put them on shelves all over the place and sell those. Whereas the volumes that happen in complex rehab are dramatically lower. So two things. One, we don't have off the shelf, like we can't just stock a bunch of things at Living Spinal. You guys, when you box a SmartDrive, there's actually some customization to what goes in the box. And that equates to manpower. That equates to knowledge of chairs and how to fit a SmartDrive onto that particular chair. And anytime you involve manpower, it involves money. It involves time to pay your wages, to pay the overhead of the building, to pay the phone line to get in and out. So what most end users don't understand, because they haven't owned and operated a business, is that there are costs associated with handling anything. And the SmartDrive is part of complex rehab. You do handle it. It's everyone is technically packaged for an individual, right? And every time you touch something, they call, you minimize the number of touches. That'll minimize costs. Well, we have a lot of touching in this industry. People are grabbing butts in this industry. You know what I'm saying? It's a very intimate industry. A lot of touching going on. So
Definitely.
Because of that, it costs a little something. But you got to remember, this is not the same size market as an iPhone market, right? This is complex rehab where you've got a much smaller volumes. Are just naturally higher, and the reason these things get out there, the reason that dealer, let's say, is charging so much for this, is because they have to maintain all kinds of accreditation so that they can actually bill your insurance. Most people don't realize that your wheelchair dealer is much like a pharmacist. Actually, they have accreditations, and they have inspections that come into their facility every year. If they screw up on their paperwork, when they get you your chair, they could be liable for millions of dollars in fines from Medicare because they think it's fraud. Even if it was a mistake, it's fraud. So there's a lot that goes into the behind the scenes to that little mom and pop or that brick and mortar building that you go to that's a dealer, or anywhere where you get fitted for a chair. You never realize just how much manpower and how personnel intensive our industry actually is, until you get behind the scenes, because now I'm behind them. I see it all. I understand. And even though it seems like it's expensive, just remember, we're not in the Best Buy market. We're in complex rehab, where every product is individually tailored for your needs. Yeah. And that's why.
And honestly, if some of those things weren't there, like the accreditations and the having auditing. To become auditing it, we wouldn't be protected the way we are. And I think a lot of times wheelchair users, and again, myself being one, you think, well, oh gosh, everything's so expensive for us. But if we didn't have those kind of protections, imagine the junk that would be thrown at us constantly, and imagine the danger that we'd be in because of the testing standards. Like, to get the SmartDrive out to market, you've got to, pass a lot of testing standards. And all of that stuff, unfortunately, costs money.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize, because it looks like a consumer product, this is an FDA-approved product. Like, we had to submit a huge multi-100-page application that included rigorous testing that had to be done, mechanical, electrical, chemical, fire. Like, you're not supposed to be able to light one of these on fire. There's so many things that go into this that you don't realize because it's a medical device. Resistance to electrical noise. So if you're driving your SmartDrive down the road and some guy on a CB radio from like a fire truck, gets on it and sparks up a bunch of EMI noise, right? Electrical magnetic noise, it can't deviate your SmartDrive performance. Like, they put these things in these massive radiation chambers, and they blast them. And if that SmartDrive during the test does not maintain the fixed velocity it's supposed to, it's out. It's done. You failed. You don't go to FDA. Mm-hmm. So you do all that, then you go to FDA, and then FDA says, I don't know. What if this guy forgets to tap? And he goes off and gets killed in the street. And all of this has to get resolved. So there's a massive undertaking just to get a product approved by the FDA. And then you got to get it on the market and sell it. I mean, it really is massive. But until you've been exposed to it, you don't understand the level, the intensity. I mean, it's like getting a drug approved, right? It's the same kind of level. It's almost like having studies. It's very similar in the process.
Yeah, people need to remember that things cost money. They should really be thankful that there are people and businesses that are bringing these awesome ideas to life. Because if you saw this and you said, it's going to cost over $5,000 for the end consumer, nobody's going to buy that. I'm just not going to do it. If that was the case, nobody would even be able to have the benefit of the SmartDrive.
Yeah.
And it goes through so many hands to take care of the people that are listening and the future customers. And we do have a bill insurance for SmartDrives. Andrew, do you want to touch on that real quick? in California?
Yeah, definitely. So, like you were saying, providers like Living Spinal, we have to have accreditations. So Living Spinal is an accredited supplier, and we have Medicare, Medi-Cal, and so people in the local area can definitely come on down to Living Spinal. We can work with your doctors, your PTs, get you the correct documentation that you need for pain relief and for that shoulder issue that you might be dealing with. There's a lot of different reasons that you'd be capable of using your insurance to get a SmartDrive, and Living Spinal could do the medical insurance if you're in California. So,
yeah. So, Mark, is there any particular industries that you look at for inspiration, like power sports or what you mentioned before, robotics?
I tend to look mostly at consumer electronics. I think because of the kind of slick user interface is kind of so everything from, I'm looking at smartwatches, so like the SmartDrive band evolves in the direction of kind of smartwatches and activity monitors. So that's happening behind the scenes. And then there's some really crazy stuff that happens in robotics. And it's like the world of self-balancing vehicles, right? You got Segways, you got hoverboards, and then there's some next-gen stuff coming out. Like if you guys watch Star Wars, that BB-8 robot, there's some stuff that's on the periphery that's like, whoa, mind-blowing. It's like a ball that just rolls by itself, multi-directional, and that kind of stuff is what we're paying attention to. It's like, oh shit, that could be like a ball rolling wheelchair or whatever, and it's like, how could we do it? What's the ins? What's the outs? What's the safety factors? What could we make this thing work and just kill it? And that's what we're doing. We're looking at, it's honestly the most cutting edge stuff you can find on the web. It's stuff that's being invented as we speak. And that's what we're looking at for ingredients to future mobility products.
Do you have any other products that outside of what you guys sell that complement the SmartDrive really well that you recommend to people?
Well, I mean, I've got experience, and I've got the product called the Flex Rim, which I licensed to Spinergy, so it's a Spinergy product, and it's a really cool ergonomic rim. But outside of that, I would just say any ergonomic rim that feels good in your hand, I would go with. Generally, because you're still, even with a SmartDrive, you're still pushing around, right? So obviously you want a really good fitting chair. You want a good CG. Right? These are things that we've developed over time and created guidelines and tried to preach to everyone. But you want as tippy as reasonably possible, because it puts the weight on the big wheels and off the front wheels, which allows lower rolling resistance. So you go further with every push. You're also a lot less sensitive to side slopes. So what most people don't realize when you're AB is that every sidewalk has a cross slope to facilitate water drainage to the cutter. And without that, the world would be full of potholes because all the water would be sitting and you wouldn't be able to live. So no matter what we do with ADA, right, guidelines and stuff for accessibility, you'll never get rid of water drainage as a primary factor that will supersede anything that a wheelchair user needs. So to make your chair impervious to side slopes, you want it as tippy as possible. Because basically it's much like a front-heavy shopping cart. If you can remember pushing a shopping cart on a side slope, and you have to fight like crazy to keep the front end up. The same thing applies for a wheelchair because it's made the exact same way. Rear wheels are fixed, front wheels are casters. So basically, if you can get all the weight on the fixed wheels, it doesn't fall down the side slope, and you can track like a mother going straight on a side slope the more you got on the back. Obviously, tippiness is the counter effect. So you don't want to tip over. So, but basically finding your personal limits. So that ergonomic rims, and just a reasonably, tight-fitting chair, not too wide, so that your arms aren't like pushing way out here. You want to kind of keep that as tight as possible, both for accessibility and for push ergonomics. So to me, that's what I offer you is not actually products. It's actually just information that can make your life better. And the SmartDrive just complements those. So you want those things no matter what, because if you have a SmartDrive or not, sometimes you don't use the SmartDrive, and you need your chair to be as good as possible, as high performance and efficient ergonomic as possible. So step one, get your chair tuned up right, and step two, put a SmartDrive on it, and I'll see you when you're 80. You'll still be like chasing the chicks.
We did an interview last week with Dean from Epical Solutions, who is the distributor for the Freewheel, and we had mentioned, you know, that the Freewheel and the SmartDrive are a pretty amazing combination because with some power assist, you've got more ability to go forward, and there is that possibility of catching on something or whatever, and it's going to allow you to be able to go on grass and go more off-road a little bit. So with a Freewheel out front, the combination is kind of watch out, here we come.
Yeah, so even though we never say the SmartDrive is designed for off-road use, because I mean off-road can get gnarly real quick, right? You know, it's like things that you need an ATV for, right? But reasonable off-road usually works, and the SmartDrive's got an incredible amount of power. Like for how tiny that thing is, people are surprised every day. We have a 350-pound weight limit, and we don't have a max grade that you can go up. It's as steep as you, from a tippiness perspective, it's as steep as you want to go. So it's got ridiculous power, ridiculous torque. So on grass, I mean, it'll just churn through whatever. Usually your limitation is the small little casters dig into the divots on the grass, and they basically stop you. I mean, you could almost fall out of the chair. So like what I typically do, if I'm playing around in grass in a chair, I go into a wheelie and I cruise in a power wheelie with the SmartDrive all the way across. But that takes a lot of skills, right? But if you have a Freewheel, it's gravy. Like you don't have to think about anything. You just go. I mean, that giant wheel, or not giant, but you know, the large pneumatic front wheel on a Freewheel is just like, it just coasts over everything. It floats. It floats over grass. It floats over. If you're going to like South America, where like the streets and the road, the sidewalks are like, it's like an amusement park for a wheelchair. like the ride is the sidewalk. You're going to want a Freewheel because you can't get more than 10 feet before having to do something like you've never thought you'd have to do in a chair, right? You're like, this is not the U.S. anymore. I've left Kansas. I'm not in Kansas anymore. It's a different world down there. And so Freewheel and SmartDrive, that combination, both grass and anywhere outside, like in any kind of somewhat developing country, you're going to be thankful. Cobblestones in Europe, you're going to go to Europe, you'll definitely be well served having a Freewheel SmartDrive combo.
As long as we're talking about travel a little bit, one of the big concerns people have with any kind of power device is going to be that lithium-ion battery. So it is, as we know, safe to fly with. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yep, absolutely. So the only regulations that do exist for lithium-ion batteries have to do with the fact that, well, I guess probably 5 to 10 years ago, there were actually lithium-ion batteries that were powering some of the internal stuff in planes. And at one point, they tried rapid charging those, and they basically ended up creating a fire. So they realized, lithium-ion, if not done right, could lead to a fire, which on a plane is catastrophic. So they have an increased sensitivity to lithium-ion batteries on a plane, and they have maximum capacities that you can, as a regular AV, you can only bring so much on an overhead bin, right? Or even in the plane at all. However, because this is a medical device, there is a special exemption that supersedes all of that. So you, as a wheelchair user, can come on that plane with something greater than that limit. So it's a medical device exemption from the.
Is there a max to that? FAA. Is there a max ceiling to that?
I don't believe there is. I don't believe there is. Again, all medical products first have to pass safety requirements for the FDA, at least in the U.S. So they take into account that we've done that testing, right? So because, I mean, you don't just want a fly-by-night chair that's not FDA approved on an airplane. So I think they kind of do a double check for the quality of the chair itself. But, we're an FDA approved product. So it's exempt. You're allowed to have it, and it's normal to put it in the overhead bin. You're actually not supposed to put it in your luggage. So the beauty of the SmartDrive, you can ride it. I mean, it's fantastic for airports because they have really long stretches of carpet, and you got inevitably you're doing the last gate, right? So you're golden. You ride it all the way down to the plane, and then you just hop onto the transfer seat, and you tell the attendant how to take it off, take the SmartDrive off your chair, and they give it to you, or they put it in your overhead for you when they bring you to your seat. It's super simple, and then just reverse the process when you leave. So we have an exemption that you can actually get printed out from our website, but you'll never need it. You rarely hear of anybody running into trouble. In fact, most of the time, the people like the TSA people and the people from the airlines themselves are usually, wow, that thing, that's so cool, never seen it. That's what they say. That
exactly.
thing's awesome. Yeah, you never really get slack. You guys just get like more and more encouragement than anything.
Yeah.
So, Mark, one of the things that's probably been fun as a business owner, that the SmartDrive has brought you a little bit around the world. Can you share with us how many countries SmartDrive is a authorized dealer in as well?
Yep. So I think we're now in 32 countries around the world.
Wow.
And it's, it's funny that need I talked about where it's like everybody needs this and the product wasn't there to meet it. It's like the same thing happens. It's like a vacuum around the world. It just gets filled. So usually it's a matter of just learning about it. Like people, it just takes a long time to get exposure. It's not like this thing has Super Bowl ads, we're not running Super Bowl ads. So not everybody's talking about it. So usually what happens is in this industry, you'll learn about it from a buddy, or you'll learn about it when you come get your new chair every 5 years. So, the thing could have been on the market for 4 years. You never even heard about it. You walk into a clinic or into, you look on Living Spinal and you're like, what the hell is that? It's just, and you don't have innovations every day. It doesn't happen real frequently. So usually it's just learning about it. Once you learn about it, you're hooked and you got it for life. So I always say that I think everyone's going to see it within 5 years, one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
That's worldwide because you come in to get your new chair about every 5 years, you're going to get exposed to it inevitably somewhere in that time frame.
Where are the biggest sales? Obviously the US, but what are some of the other countries out there that are digging it?
So there's the natural thing is any developed country that has kind of an insurance model like us that can actually pay for medical prices because everything is, again, expensive everywhere. So people have to pay a premium for medical devices. So Germany, all of Europe, at least Northern Europe, that's hot. Switzerland, Germany, France, UK, even Netherlands, those are all hot. But for some reason, I know the reason, but we got one little special Pied Piper advocate down in Australia. And so we talk about sales in per capita, like per million of inhabitants, right? Like population normalized sales. And they are about double the US normalized sales. So they sell essentially twice as many SmartDrives as I do in the US per capita, which is insane. Basically, if you're in a chair, you're getting a SmartDrive in Australia, pretty much.
Yeah, Australia's insurance coverage is really good. I've talked with, when doing rehab in the past, I've worked with a ton of people from Australia because their insurance coverage is like, sure, wherever you want to do insurance, we'll cover it kind of thing. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just something about that country. They rethought how to do it, and they kind of nitpick. They sort of hand selected how to create their system to be smarter than everyone. So they're more, they're working well. Because it's obvious that there's a need. So if there's ever any hoops to jump through, it's just to prevent fraud in our system, right? I mean, that's all this is. So if the system is kind of a pain in the ass to go through, it's because people in the past have learned to take advantage of it, and the government has to fight back a little bit. Yeah. So if it's resistance, as long as you have a legitimate need, just push, lean on it, be your own advocate, and you're going to get what you need because the need is clear. Therapists will get behind you. Whatever you need, there's going to be resources to tackle that. You just ask around, get some help, and how's it normally done?
People were probably really sick of not being able to keep up with kangaroos. So
that's awesome. So the jumping SmartDrive is next, right?
Exactly. The hop drive.
So
Andrew, do you have any other questions?
No, I think that's about it. Thanks so much for being with us today, Mark. And again, kudos to you that you've done an incredible job in a really uphill market. And now everybody can go uphill.
That's awesome. Nice. I love it.
It's fun. Wow.
Cool.
All right, Mark. Well, we'll talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. See you. Bye.
Bye.